This is the Totally Indian Football Show, and you're listening to episode number 4. I'm your host, Siju, and today we have a very special guest. I don't think he needs much introduction because 656 has been the talk of the town since a very long time in Indian football. But let me take this honor and do the formal introduction. We have the CEO and co-founder of the brand 656, which has been a merchandise partner for many clubs, including the national team, Mr. Amber Aneja. Welcome to the show, Amber.
Hi, Siju. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here. I'm glad to be here. I've heard it from the other side. I never thought I'd be here on this
Great.
side.
Oh, I was actually supposed to ask you. I'm not saying, or rather tell you that, I'm not sure if you are one of our listeners of the show, but humbled to know that you are.
Of course. I mean, for us, we're too involved in Indian football to not know what's happening on the ground. So it's good to know. It's good to know what people are thinking, what the thought process is, where things are swaying, where thought processes are swaying. So always involved.
Great. So I think today's episode is we are going to get a glimpse into what the thought process and what sways 656 into in terms of Indian football. So let's get it started. Now, I did, my reference point for one of your interviews that you did with, I think, Biz Behind Sports, and it mentions about a bit of a story of the name and stuff. But if you can tell us a little more into, firstly, why 656 and how did you guys get into Indian football merch?
Well, to begin with, I think sport has been a big part of life for both Avni, who's my co-founder, and I. Ever since we kind of grew up, we grew up with sport around us constantly, consistently, all the time. So it was never that we were alien to what was happening in the sports world. But so and then they intersected with our interests, which was also towards fashion and towards sports clothing, and then so on and so forth. So that's where the actual idea started, and it kind of grew from there. Before starting 656, we were actually working with another international brand, trying to bring them to the Indian market. And you would have heard of Admiral. I think we did partner with KBFC at that point as well, and then had a lot of experience there, had a lot of exposure with that, and eventually just decided to not really focus on a licensed brand and really work towards building one of our own. So that's where the journey with 656 started. It was an amalgamation of passion as well as business, as well as opportunity that we saw and continue to see in the Indian market, not just for football, but for sports and licensed merchandise as a whole. So yeah, it's been about 3 years now, almost 2018 October. Yes, about 3 years now since we started, and going strong, kind of building on top of a foundation that we set for ourselves, even through a pandemic. And through all of these challenges. And the name is an interesting story because it comes from a flight number that Avni and I were on when we were thinking of names for our brand. So it's really, really hard to get class 25 trademarking across the board. Class 25 is the class of goods that we operate under, which is apparel, footwear, accessories, all of those things. So we'd been going at it with our lawyer to say, is this name available? Is this name possible? Went through a list of almost 200 names on an Excel. And then finally, it got more and more outlandish until we got to 656. And we were like, okay, doesn't mean anything. So we can make it mean whatever we want to make it mean. And kind of went from there. So.
Okay, so if I may ask you, where were you guys heading to on the flight?
Oh, we were coming back from a disastrous meeting with Admiral brand. We were heading back to Delhi, and so if you see the logo, right? When we are getting our logo designed, if you see it, it's divided into two parts. So if you cover one part, you see mountains. So if you cover the top part, you see mountains, and if you cover the bottom part, you see a bird. So it's the tally symbol for 5, but it's also a bird flying over a mountain, which is symbolic of being on a flight.
Interesting. I think, yeah, just like you said, it may not mean anything, but you guys are definitely giving it meaning. And moving on with the conversation, if you can tell us or take us through probably the ideation process of, when the jerseys are made. especially with regards to the Indian football kitting that you guys are involved with? How does what happens behind the scenes?
So every partner that we have, it's a unique process with each partner. We haven't really standardized it yet. I think we're too young to have a standard process in place at the moment. But the experience is pretty much similar to how a collaboration would happen between two people. So, say for example, if you and I were to sit down and collaborate, you would bring something to the table and I would bring something to the table, and then we would, using our respective skill sets, make the most out of that as a collaboration. And that's the same thing that we do in terms of the design process with any of the clubs or partnerships that we have, which is to say, here's mostly it's always about the club first. It's always about the team first, whether it's the club, whether it's the association, whether it's AIFF. It's always about them first and what they identify with first and foremost. And then just our design thought process, ideology, how we see this fitting into our DNA, because we've always tried to kind of focus on being design first as a company. Um, that I think good design is good business, and that's something that we live by. That's something that we live through, work through. So we first see what the team is leaning towards, and then there are times where we completely disagree. So we try to change the direction. There are times that we're completely on the same page, and we just add our little touch to it, which just gives it that extra mile or that extra edge. But it's mostly just about building a connect with what the team stands for, and subsequently what the fans would associate with it. And we don't always get it right. I would not say we've always gotten it right, but it. I think we're slowly getting better at it as we go along, as we go down the road.
And what got you guys like, getting into Indian football? Why was that decision? Because if I'm not wrong, you were inclined to cricket, and your sister, I think, is basketball. Is that what's the sport that she
Yeah,
was playing? Yeah.
correct,
So
correct.
so an Indian football, yes, it's a I mean, it's a slow growth that's happening with the Indian football scene. So, what made you guys come into?
So even though we played our respective sports, I think the one sport that we commonly watched together or shared a lot of interest for was football. As kids as well, the World Cups used to sit and watch them late night together. Just had a lot of conversation around it. I've watched the Premier League since I was, I don't know, 9 years old. So always been around football and always respected the sport for what it is. It's the most widely played sport in the world, or 200 plus countries play it. It's way more universal than any of the other sports that we were just discussing, or even the sports that we played. And the thought process for us was always to not just think of India as a market, not just think of what's in our immediate environment, but think of what we want to do with this for the next 20 years, for the next 40 years. And the answer to that was always to be smart about how we're going to be investing our money, how we're going to be investing our time. To invest today in cricket is a huge investment, and at that time, 3 years ago, it seemed out of reach for us to not even. I mean, forget the Indian national cricket team. Just even IPL clubs at that time seemed out of reach for us, and it made a lot of sense to partner with something that was more prestigious. And would give us more of a standing in a market where we could actually stand on our legs instead of just being overshadowed. So that's what we started. We started with football because it was smart business. It's a sport that's widely played across the globe, as well as easy to grasp. All you need is a ball and not much else. So it's an easy sport to play overall, for the average beginner, and that's what we aimed for as well.
Right. Now you mentioned the process of ideation and what happens behind the scenes with you guys and the clubs involved, right? How important or how key is an aspect from a fan? Because, like you mentioned, you go down to the culture bit, what the club stands for, and that's what you try to incorporate onto the kit. So, how important even a fan perspective is involved here? Because at the end of the day, that's your market who's going to buy that.
It's extremely important, and at the same time, it's also, so you have to explore both sides to it. So you have to know what the fans are looking for, But at the same time, you also have to assume that the fan doesn't know what they don't know. So there's two ways of thinking about design and product, right? One is the conventional way, which is you reverse engineer what you build towards the audience that you think will buy for it. And the other way is to change the status quo and almost shock and surprise the end customer, which ends up in them buying it. And we utilize both depending on the stakes and depending on how much of a leeway we get with the clubs to actually experiment. But for us, the ideal situation is when someone gives us a blank canvas and says, go crazy, do things, experiment, try something new, because that gives us freedom to just give our own spin to what we believe and perceive is to be the identity of that club. And our research involves the fans. Our research involves everything from what people are saying across social media, across key fan groups. For example, with KBFC, we have we not directly but through the club and through other people involved. We definitely want to get a pulse of where they're at, and then take it forward from there. So it's very important, and at the same time, not very important. I don't know if that makes sense. It's important to know where they're at, but it's also important to not just listen to where they're at.
Right, got it. So was that part of what you guys have been? You guys have been heavily active on social media also, especially like, we always say that there's a Twitter community of Indian football growing on the platform. So was that one of the reasons that you guys put out, reaching out to the fans over there in terms of some people even voiced that about pricing, which I'm going to come to, so was that a key thing for you guys to look at? Okay, will the fan or can the fan afford? And you guys came up with some discounts for college students as well.
So 100%. See, in terms of, and I'm sure we'll get to pricing, and I definitely will talk about that as well. But overall, yes, being involved with the community is super important. And as we grow, as we expand into other sports as well, not just in terms of, not just football, but also to other sports. And as we grow along the lines, it's really important to make sure we build our community and bring them along. Because as we grow more and more into the second half of this decade, it's going to be extremely, like, it's going to be impossible for any brand or business or organization to survive without community. Because products are going to become from physical to digital to a hybrid of sorts eventually. You like, might sound outlandish to think about, but you might not even buy a physical jersey 10 years from now. You might just be buying a digital one. So there's all of that is, some things that we're looking at. And for that, we know it's important to just make sure that we keep listening to people who are actually investing in us by buying the products that we make. So it's definitely a part of the plan, and it's definitely, we want to hear more, we want to do more. We're working on a bunch of things which will, get us even closer to you guys, to the fans, to hear your opinions, to even invite you to kind of be a part of the picture in some way, in whatever way we can try. So definitely, like, that's one of the reasons why we've been more active and more involved.
Right. Now, I think for any kit partners or merchandise or manufacturers, it's a joy and probably an ecstatic moment for them to work with the national team of a particular sport. And now you guys are post Nike. I think you are the guys who've taken over the onus of being the official merchandise partner for the Indian national football team. So how did that go about, and how happy were you when you got this opportunity?
To be honest, we still pinch ourselves about that. You know, you in the everyday of work, you kind of stop appreciating all that you're doing and how far that has come. And every time we now even still watch the national team play and we watch our stuff on TV, it's still that moment where you're like, oh, we did something right. So it's how do I put it? I think it's incredible the way that went about, the way that happened was also, you know, without divulging way too much. It was a process that we went through with the federation, with the stakeholders, where we were basically At the time, we were known as Admiral, as as the brand. But the whole story that we wanted to tell was that yes, we might not be the sub licensor of an international brand anymore, but at the same time, we're the same people who were delivering when we were Admiral. We're the same company, we're the same people. So even though the brand is changing and we're building our own, it's important for the federation and everyone else to know that nothing will change in terms of the quality that we provide or the servicing that we do. And so that's how that entire process went about. We were up against all of the usual suspects in the sportswear industry, and you know, the story that we told was the story that the federation heard, liked, enjoyed, and that's how this whole thing came about. So even though at that time it might seem like we were just a new company just entering into the business with the national team right off the bat, it was more like we had 2 3 years of experience, and yes, there was a new brand, but we already knew in some way what we were doing.
Right now, talking about the national team, uh, it's not been a great on-field performance. So my question to you is, when the on-field performance takes a hit, how do you guys then position yourself?
See, we've never positioned ourselves for good on-field performance either or bad on-field performance. I think whatever happens on the field is, of course, it'll affect us in terms of sales or any of those things. When the team plays well, we get more sales. There's no question about that. But we don't really change our strategy or align ourselves any differently with on-field performance. We keep ourselves on the same page. Our job is to ensure that we keep supplying the highest quality of goods to the team and to the fans, and whoever wants them, and we just keep doing our job. So we don't really change our strategy with what happens on the field at all.
Right. Now, you mentioned you've been in the business for 3 years with 656 in the picture. You, in that short span, you were already part of history in terms of when FC Goa played in the Asian Champions League. That was a historic moment for the club and for Indian football at large. And you guys got to design some amazing kits for them, especially a special edition where you merged both the orange and black ones. So, if you can tell us something more about it. And I've also known that not many got hands on that special edition, but do you plan to release it more or?
So that's uh, firstly, that process was fun. It was last minute, like most things in the sports industry, but it was a lot of fun to be able to do that, and it was enjoyable. And I'm glad we were a part of that. Definitely, as a as a company, it's great to be at the global stage with all of these, you know you see all of these different brands that have been around for decades now, and then you have little old us, 3 years into this, kind of stacked right next to them. So I think it's an invaluable experience, and it gives us a lot of exposure that we're always thankful for. So as far as the special editions or limited editions are concerned, it was literally a spur of the moment idea. We were doing a photo shoot, and we had put both the black and orange jersey next to each other, like almost like a half and half. And that's when the idea kind of spun around. We were just like, why don't we make a half and half? And then it just started from there, and we ended up releasing it. Got a good response. We only made about 30 or so units, and we numbered them. So I think I have one that I kept for myself, but yes, got a great response in that, and we plan to do this for any of the special moments that come by our way. Whether it's for the national team, whether it's for any of the clubs, wherever we can, we go ahead and try and commemorate the event, or if there's anything that's significant that's happening on the field.
Now, talking about special moments, I'm sure this particular season is definitely incredibly special for you as a merch partner, as a kit manufacturer, because you guys are not part of one or two. You guys are part of many clubs and designing their kits. Named, KBFC Kerala Blasters. You are with Northeast United. Then you also have FC Bengaluru United, Real Kashmir, Punjab FC, to name a few among the Indian football circuit. And you also have clubs from Qatar and Portugal, if I'm not wrong. So, how do you guys go about managing all these guys and give us what are your thoughts on the current season.
We're excited. I think this season, before we started, we kind of put our sight on it and said, let's give it our all and do as much as we can this season, because we were before this we were playing it safe. We were trying to keep it minimal, proving our concept to ourselves essentially. But this season, we just decided, okay, I think we're capable, equipped enough, and know enough to kind of take the plunge and go across the board with teams, with clubs. Because there's been a lot of inward interest as well, where people have been reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, are you guys interested? Would you guys be interested in doing this?" So yes, we have gone ahead and expanded our team, have a lot more hands on deck to help manage the situation, because a lot of things in Indian sport are last minute due to sponsor deals and all of those other things that happen behind the scenes. So we have scaled a bunch of our operations and processes to be able to manage a higher influx of teams and partners and collaborators, while ensuring that we're not missing out in terms of design or quality or um, fan merchandise or any of the value that we provide otherwise, because that is, I think, what sets us apart from any of the other partners in India, where we actually go and create an entire experience, not just for the team but for the fans as well. And we don't want to do it in a way that compromises on any aspect of it. So each of the clubs that we partner with, you'll see merchandise being put out, you'll see kit launches happening, you'll see all of those other things that we would do otherwise, regardless of how we were doing it. So, and as far as the international interest is concerned, I think, as I said right at the start, right, we looked at this as not just something that we would do in India, but we would do globally. And this was but only a natural extension. And you're going to see a lot more of the international side of things going forward, where we're expanding our presence in Europe, definitely, and as well as the Middle East.
Now, in the same interview that I mentioned a while ago, you also mentioned that 2022, you guys are gonna come up with something that'll blow all our minds, keeping in mind the Asian Cup and then the other tournaments that are coming up. Now, I think this, if I'm not wrong, this interview was somewhere early 2021. So I think we are almost like just 2-3 months away from the new year. Do you want to spill some beans here on the show? What to expect? What will blow our minds?
See, I think we've announced a lot of the things that we were working on, under the radar, almost in stealth mode for the last 6 months, where we've upgraded our fabrics, our badges, fan experience. We're launching the new website soon, so that's exclusive to here. You guys are the first ones to know that. So the entire online experience that we're doing is going to change super soon, within this month actually. Um, and in addition, there's a very interesting product that we've been working on, which has taken a lot longer than we anticipated to get out. But yes, that's something that you will see in the first quarter of 22, is a design your own tool. So for anyone and everyone to come on an online platform and be able to design their own kit, in a much more intuitive and involved manner than ever before. So that's something that you'll see in that's something that you'll see in 2022.
Great. Thank you for that bit. And I'm coming to almost the concluding bits, but I have to ask you, how do you guys get the kit over to Cabby? I mean, if I'm getting his name right. And
We didn't. I promise you. We did not. We got to know about it much like so. We got to know about it on the same day as you did, basically, where we saw it on social media, and then we were okay. It's our kid. So we found out later it was their manager had placed an order on our website, because and that we it wasn't a flagged at all, because we keep getting international orders for the national team jersey, so we don't think twice about. It's not like someone's scrutinizing them every single day. And so we got an international order from Italy, and it got delivered. And then a few weeks after that, that video came out. So that's how it happened. There was nothing else. It was completely, organic. It was just completely from the fact that someone liked the jersey and wanted to wear it.
Right. I think that's even a good bit to hear about that story as well. Now we also mentioned about delivery and pricing. So let's come to that bit, and I think I'll give you this platform to talk to us about. This has been a concern. I myself even shared my bit as well in terms of why can we not have a lesser price? To quote you from the article you mentioned about when the question was regarding how do you go about having or seeing fake jerseys or fake kits in the market. You mentioned that somebody who buys kit for 100 or 200 is not your audience, but somebody who probably will spend 1500 is who will come back and who will know your quality. Definitely, the quality does matter, and for that, the production will go up. But if you can tell us, I mean, to look at Indian football community as a whole, you'll always have people who will probably, the majority are college going crowd. So, how do you go about with pricing? Do you want to, will we see a bit of reduction in the price, or this is how it's going to be?
So, a few things here. And pricing is a function of multiple factors that we have to map into, right? Now, let's say you as a fan, and you're saying, let's say 1500 is considered to be high priced. Now, I would say there are multiple ways to go about pricing a product and creating a product. And the number one factor about any product is want of that specific product. We have seen this multiple times in our experience as well as in the past, is that uh, with counterfeit products so easily available in the market, anyone who's leaning towards counterfeit product is going to go buy it, even if it's 100 rupee difference from our official product. Several times we've seen that example, and that's based on our research. Now, we might be wrong or we might not be fully accurate on that, but so far that's what our research has told us. And for us, the pure cost of the product is one part. In addition, there is a significant chunk of the proceeds of every product that we sell that goes towards the club. That is also has to kind of be priced into the product cost as a whole. But at the same time, we work within a price bracket of say about 900 rupees, going all the way to about 3,500 to 4,000 rupees that you'll see with like the heavy jackets and all of those things. And I don't think we can bring the price further down. We haven't launched the 999 version yet for the fanwear, which is like a stadium jersey that we'll be launching for all of the clubs as well. But like that will launch. It's just not been launched yet. It's pricing is a very subjective matter because at the end of the day, for us to keep providing this fan experience, the brand experience that we're trying to provide, we also have to ensure that it's sustainable for us to do so. And keeping our brand quality, brand image intact is also super important. So every time we have to reduce price, we have to either reduce quality or reduce something in some way, shape, or form, which will eventually have an impact on fan experience as well. So we've done our research on this a fair amount and tried to find a sweet point which will not pinch everyone. Of course, it will never be for the ones who was only going to buy a 200, 300 rupee jersey. But everyone else, we've tried to kind of make accommodations for it, whether it's through buy now, pay later, whether it's through any of the other factors to just make sure that they're able to afford it. Have we fully done it yet? Probably not. Are we on the way? Mostly. And prices are only going to increase because inflation is increasing, right? So you're never going to see it come down. We have all of these other costs. Like today, cost of logistics is 1.5 times what it was 4 months ago, just because so many other factors have changed. So those are not factors that we pass on yet. But if those things persist, all of those things persist, then next season those things will change as well for us as well as for the end customer, and not just in the price of jerseys, but in the price of all products that you'll be buying. So yeah, overall, we feel that the product that we provide across the board, we provide it at a fair price, while ensuring that we're giving the brand experience that we would also be proud of as 656. So that's our thoughts on pricing.
Yeah, I think that's a fair insight to that bit, and I hope the fans would hear this out. That's why I thought this would be a great platform for you to put that out. So probably that's put at rest.
But
Uh,
what about your thoughts on what I said? Because I've seen you also debate about this aspect as well, about how like more than 1,000 rupees for a jersey is a high price, and us as brands should look at it in a more in-depth manner. What are your thoughts? I would really want to know as well.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I think once in a while, like for example, if I would want a lot of jerseys, right? I like credit where it's due. I love the Bangalore United blue kit. Okay, I absolutely love it. And I would want my hands on a Kashmir and a Punjab FC because of Real Kashmir being Real Kashmir and Punjab FC, me having some connections with the coach there. So you always want all of these, right? And when you sum the whole thing up, my bill is going to exceed a lot. So I don't think I would be able to afford all of them at one go. Then maybe I'm fortunate enough at the moment right now I have two jobs paying me. So okay, I can probably afford one in once a month and then maybe buy it a little later. So, but I think a hardcore fan of a club. Like my club is dead and gone. I used to support Mumbai FC. So unfortunately you can't even do anything with that. But for somebody who's a very hardcore, passionate fan about the club and wants to get a hand on the jersey, like I said, majority wouldn't be able to pay 1,500. But I am absolutely in sync with what you're saying. Yes, the production quality, yes, the logistics, yes, we have to cater to that side. But I don't know. Like I said, there's always a two sides to the story, and both sides sometimes seem to be right.
Of
But
course. I
yeah,
mean, if you can, so I've seen multiple comparisons happen, right? Without taking the names of any of the other brands. But I've seen multiple comparisons happen online as well as otherwise, where there's some that are priced lower than us, some that are priced higher than us as well. For me, we don't really look at any of the comparisons because it's like comparing apples and oranges in our mind. If we were to do an apple to apple comparison, we would have to assume that all other factors would remain consistent. So, for example, royalties to clubs. For every sale that we make, a percentage going to clubs. I don't know how many clubs have that deal with their partners. I don't know how they're doing it. I don't know what that percentage is. But we want to make sure that the club is equally incentivized to help us as well as help themselves. And at the same time, the fans who are only here with us because of the clubs that they support are also in the know about the fact that their purchase or everything that their fandom is in some way going back to their club and flowing that and helping that build better, helping them grow better. All there are multiple factors here, right? And of course, there is no one right answer. We'll probably learn from this every season until we come to a point where we'll be able to do more and do better justice to it. But overall, I think the intent from our side is never to not have people buy our stuff. It's always to have it as accessible as possible to as many. But it's almost like, so let's say if I was a freelancer, if you were a freelancer, and you would charge X for something. Now that's a price that you set because you think that's fair, or that's the right way to go about it. And I ask you to come in and do it at half of X. It's not going to be fair on you or me because you're not going to be fully involved, even if you end up doing it. And when you end up doing it, I'm not going to be fully happy with the output that we got it. So it's just that equilibrium that we try to find.
right. I think I'm in sync with one, at least, if not. I mean, I think like I said, I'm not picking your sides here, and I absolutely understand your side as well. If you ask me, am I going to buy a jersey? Definitely, I will. The other point is, I think I'm very much in sync with a club being incentivized, because knowing the scene of Indian football business and the market side, clubs are bleeding. So I think merch is something that they can look forward to getting some returns of what they're putting. But yeah, I think this was a good discussion. I think we've kept it out open, and I'm sure the fans would definitely tune into this one because they would want to know at least the last bit that we spoke. That's something going to interest them.
This is as honest as I can be. I like there is so much that people believe is happening behind the scenes, but it's actually very, very simple, right? It's we make a product, we have to earn money on it. We also have to provide a good experience. So it's marked up specifically in addition to making sure that we are able to provide that experience. Can it be marked up less? Possibly. What would we have to compromise on to do that is the question that we then have to answer for ourselves. So that's all that is. Like last season, we did FC Goa. We sold jerseys for 1,000 rupees. Got multiple amounts of feedback to say how the quality isn't that great, how we can be better, and we realized that there's no point, trying to price ourselves lower and taking a hit on quality because you just put out a bad brand experience. There are multiple people providing decent, as you would call it, decent quality for that price that we were putting it at. So we said, why not just take one leap? And what we're providing today is what Nike would sell to you at 4,500 rupees. I can confidently say that. Once you see that any of the products that you just mentioned, right? You mentioned FCBU, you mentioned KBFC. Once you see any of these products in hand, I hope, and you just compare them apple to apple, I hope we're able to justify what I just said.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on that note, if you guys ever plan to have a merch or collaborate with a podcast, we're just letting you know we're right here.
100%, of course. Let's connect after this for sure, and we'll see what we can do.
Great. I didn't know that would be so quick, but anyway, that was not part of the script, but I had to pull that off. Amber Aneja, thank you so much for your time, for this candid conversation, and for your honesty. Thank you so much for being on this episode, and I'm sure the fans will definitely want to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. For me, like closing words to anyone and everyone who tunes into this, we're available, right? You're accessible. You can just literally tweet at us, message us, email us. We're looking at everything. We're answering to everything. We're available. We're here to listen to any and all feedback that you might have and to grow, right? We're here because at the end of the day, we wouldn't exist if you guys didn't believe in us and pull the trigger on our website and buy what we sell. So we're here because of you. And if there's any questions that we can answer to facilitate that, to make that better, please do reach out. We're here, is all I would say.
Great. Amber is available, and so are we on all the leading platforms and all the major audio platforms. This is the Totally Indian Football Show. I'm your host, Suju, signing off from episode 4. Please do follow Humans of Indian Football on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.